Launch control engaged in 3, 2, 1, go!
Stop.
What? Audi's first attempt at an electric car, the e-tron SUV, was an okay effort. It was nowhere near as cool as the R8 e-tron we got to see in the Marvel movies, and it was nowhere near as interesting as the Tesla Model X with those crazy Falcon doors. Well, Audi now has a new electric vehicle called the e-tron GT, and unlike the e-tron, which is an SUV, this RS e-tron GT is a much different beast. Let's start with an easy question. What is an Audi e-tron GT? Well, unlike the standard e-tron, the GT is classified as a 4-door coupe, so it has some super sexy proportions. It's about the same length as an Audi A7, but it's lower and wider, giving it a more menacing stance. And it's so low to the ground that it cuts through the air with a really great drag coefficient of just 0.24. I think what I most appreciate about the e-tron GT is that it doesn't go out of its way to scream, "Hey, I'm an electric car." In fact, I've had some friends and family come up and ask me, "Jared, is that the electric Audi you're driving?" Because they just didn't know. They thought it was a gas-powered car. I think the main reason they thought that is because the front end of this car looks like it could be a gasoline-powered car. It has this grille cutout even though there's no engine up front. Now on the RS model, all of this area is going to be finished in black, but for a small fee, you can have this center area finished in body color. On the standard e-tron GT, it's going to be finished in silver, but no matter how much you spend, this area on the outside is always going to be black, which I think makes it look just a little bit weird. I think I would prefer it if it was all red. And the details on this car are absolutely epic. We've got these really cool LED headlights. We've got these optional 21-inch futuristic wheels with massive carbon ceramic brakes behind them. And don't even get me started about the back end of this car. We've got this really cool pop-up spoiler. I love a pop-up spoiler in any car. And we've got these awesome taillight bar that wraps around the entire length of the vehicle, making it look super wide. And the animations that they do with the lights are definitely top of the automotive industry. I've been driving this car around all week, and when you drive by people in the RS e-tron GT, they go, "Whoa, what was that?" This is a very expensive vehicle, starting at just under $140,000 for this RS version, but the interior feels properly fancy. My favorite part about it is just how normal everything feels in here. If you've driven any modern Audi model, this will not feel alien to you at all. In fact, my favorite part about reading the press release for this car was that they mentioned that it has a flat bottom, full circumference steering wheel. That's clearly a dig at Tesla's controversial yoke. Audi hasn't tried to reinvent the wheel here. We've got the same 10.1-inch MMI touchscreen that you get in other Audi models, and it functions excellently with wireless CarPlay and wireless Android Auto support. The controls on the steering wheel are familiar too. We've got the same 12.3-inch virtual cockpit display that you can configure. You can make the gauges bigger, make them smaller. You can get a full map, or you can make it smaller. Again, the same as a normal Audi model. And unlike its platform stablemate, the Porsche Taycan, the e-tron GT has normal buttons to control the fans, and you can just grab the air vents and point them where you want it. They haven't gone to make it overly complicated. In fact, the only weird elements of this car's interior are right here. You have this interesting volume touchpad. You spin it this way to raise the volume, you spin it the other direction to lower it. It actually works quite well. I would prefer a knob, but this is a pretty ingenious solution. And you have a slightly unique shifter. You bump it forward for reverse, bump it down for drive, push P for park. But again, that's pretty simple to get used to as well. Let's start with the back seat. Now that sexy roofline looks great on the outside, but this back seat is tiny. I've got very limited headroom and not a whole ton of legroom, less than what you're gonna get on something like the Audi RS7, which is already pretty limited. And even this front seat, while comfortable, is very difficult to get in and out of. And I'm pretty young, so I'm pretty good at this, but the headroom here is just very low with this low roofline. And as you can see, as you get out of it, you always bump into this very far forward B pillar. So it's a little little bit difficult to get in and out of the e-tron GT if you're not very mobile. And the trunk is definitely smaller than some other vehicles of this size. We've only got 9.2 cubic feet of space back here. You can drop the seats down for a little bit more storage, but this is less than half of the amount of space you're gonna get in the Audi RS7. We really wish Audi would have made this a sportback model like that RS7. As a small consolation prize for the tiny trunk, you do get a small area up front since there's no engine up here, which is perfect for storing your charging cable. So we showed you the launch control at the beginning of this video, and it's obviously hilarious, but let's talk a little bit more about what's happening here on the e-tron GT. We've got two electric motors that combine to produce 469 horsepower, but for 2.5 seconds, it can use an overboost function to produce 522 horsepower. Now that's already seriously quick, 0 to 60 in 3.8 seconds. But this RS e-tron GT that we're driving is even more powerful. This model bumps the output up to 590 horsepower or 637 horsepower if you use the overboost and launch control functions. That's more power than you get in an Audi R8, and it can rocket this car up to 60 miles an hour in 3.1 seconds. And I think that number is even a little bit conservative. Now let's find out again what that feels like. All right, are you ready? Whoa! That hurts my head! Like literally, it smacks your head against the rest. I think Audi is being way too conservative with that 3.1 second number. Now I know a Tesla Model Plaid will do it in like 1.9 or whatever they claim. So it will be quicker than this, but I promise you, you do not need a car that's quicker than this. I think we should probably just stop with this whole let's make the cars faster thing, because this is already ballistic, and that's just the launch control. This thing is immediate. Whenever you put down your foot in dynamic mode, watch this. Whoa! Oh, we just jumped like 10 miles an hour. It's absolutely ballistic, and I think that anybody who's never driven an electric vehicle before, you've had an RS7, an RS6, something like that, you're gonna be more impressed with this than in those gasoline-powered Audis. Now, the Tesla Model S Plaid will still be quicker in a straight line. There's no getting around that fact. But if you like how a car drives, the steering, the dynamics of it, I think you'll enjoy the RS e-tron GT even more. Frankly, I was a bit worried that I wouldn't like the steering on this car. This is one area where Audi has never seemed to have been able to match its rivals, especially Porsche. Now, admittedly, the Porsche Taycan, which shares a platform with this car, does have better steering. It's a little bit more precise on center. It really does feel like a sports car, like a 911. However, this is the best steering I have ever felt in an Audi, bar none. It's super precise. I can feel what the front end is up to. I can direct this car exactly how I want and point it in the right direction so easily. This is a phenomenal steering experience, and I'm very pleased with it. Now, we've still got Audi's Quattro all-wheel drive system here, but it's very different than a gas-powered model. We have a smaller electric motor at the front, driving only the front wheels, and a much larger electric motor at the back, driving only the rear. And they're not actually connected via anything physically, so they can operate very independently of each other. And the e-tron GT really feels like a rear-wheel drive car, where a lot of other Audi models definitely feel like they bias a lot of power to the front. And since we've got our batteries mounted low in the floor, we have an amazing center of gravity. So when you go ahead and chuck the RS e-tron GT through a corner, it doesn't understeer. We don't have a big, heavy engine way in front of the front axle, giving us all of that unfortunate understeer. This car actually favors oversteer. And this car just feels so much more stable and so much more nimble than other Audi models. We've got rear axle steering there at the back. So below 30 miles an hour, the wheels will turn opposite of the fronts to give you amazing turning circles. So I'm about to do a U-turn here, and you can just flip around, no problem whatsoever, super tight turning radius. And then when you're above 30 miles an hour, the wheels will actually turn with the fronts, giving you amazing stability at high speeds. So buried under the floor of both versions of the e-tron GT is a 93.4 kilowatt hour battery pack. Now that's pretty large, almost as large as the one you get in the Tesla Model S, which is 100 kilowatt hours. Now that battery pack is going to enable 238 miles of range if you get the standard e-tron GT, a little bit less, 232 miles if you get this RS model. Now admittedly, the Tesla Model S will go about 400 miles on a charge according to the EPA, but as we've seen from real world tests, this Audi has an easy time meeting or even exceeding its range. The way I've been driving it, I think I could get close to 300 miles out of this car, whereas the Tesla seems to not be able to hit that 400-mile range so easily. But it's not all about how far you can go on a single charge, it's how quickly you can replenish that battery. And in the e-tron GT, you can do it quite quickly. If you use the Electrify America network, you get 3 years of complimentary charging, and Audi says you can charge at up to 270 kilowatts. Basically, that means that this will charge quicker than even the fastest Tesla superchargers. Now, if you have no idea what 270 kilowatts means, I'll explain it to you like this. You plug in with 5% battery and it'll get you up to 80 in just 22.5 minutes. So basically, you go in, stop to pee, and in that time, you'll have 180 miles of range left to get back on your journey. Audi even gives you a second charge door over on the other side of the car. So if you have a charger on one side or the other of your garage, or you pull up to a charger where it's awkwardly on the other side, you don't have to stretch the charging cable across the car. That's a nice convenience. Now at this point you might be saying, I want an Audi e-tron GT, but I gotta tell you, it's not cheap. The base model starts at $99,900, though you do get a $7,500 federal tax credit that will help you out towards your purchase. Now the RS model that we have is significantly more expensive. It's $139,900 to start, and with the options that we have on this guy, it's about 162 grand. Now that's gonna put it right within spitting distance of the most notorious car in the electric vehicle market, the Tesla Model S Plaid. Now admittedly, the Tesla is quicker, it has a much longer range, and the practicality on the Tesla is much better. But I think there are a few areas where the RS e-tron GT shines. This thing just has way more presence out on the road. People notice you in this car, whereas the Tesla is kind of a dime a dozen. I think the driving dynamics are also better on this. There's better steering feel, and the quality inside completely on another level. So if you are looking for a luxury electric vehicle, I think the RS e-tron GT is a fantastic option.